Did you guys do anything for Mother's Day? Did you get any cards or anything like that?
Done a kazoo thing the other week, just after my face got paralysed. I dedicated it. My mum's favourite singer was Neil Sedaka, who died the other week.
Yeah.
So I did a performance of Calendar Girl with half of my face, and I sent her the recording. That's about as far as it went.
I went out for a meal.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah. Went out
Where'd
for
you go?
we went to the Sun Inn in Morpeth,
Oh, okay. All right.
which is it's all right. It's a nice little place, and that's where I had a good few Guinness and got a little bit leery. But I went with my mum, and obviously my wife is now a mother. My auntie and uncle came up from Grimsby, so it was a jolly time for all.
Fucking hell! What an that accent must have created a black cloud over the table. That mix in Morpeth with people from Grimsby, and there's alcohol involved.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it must
my
have
mum's partner is Irish as well. So
Fuck me. That would have been the equivalent of. Do you remember those like Andy Cap comics when they always get into a fight and it just goes into like a cloud of like asterisks and pound signs and stars and stuff?
Yeah.
Anybody
that is what was happening.
Anybody who walked past that table.
Yeah, it was like Animal Crossing language.
Yeah. I don't want to alarm anybody.
Mm.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but I think that table in the corner are speaking Simlish. Good Lord. Right, well, happy Mother's Day, everybody. And it's ironic that it is Mother's Day today because once you hear the band, you're going to wish your mother had never give fucking birth to you. This is Think Tankards. We are three guys from the Northeast who met doing stand-up comedy. My name is Chris.
My name is Ian.
And my name is Nathan.
And today we have got Nathan, who is going to control the narrative, and Nathan's going to use that disproportionate influence over the media to force us into listening to a band called the Shaggs from 1965. Now, before I hand over to Nathan, I will say I did very strenuous research whilst I was having my second poop of the day about whether I could use music clips in this podcast. And it turns out, no, somebody would strike us. And in previous podcasts, I have had it removed from things like YouTube because I was watching a film and doing commentary along with it. And because you could hear too much of the film, they turned it off. So
I've done that.
Yeah, it's a bastard. But there is... I will link it in the episode. There will be a recommended to go and listen to it. So I will link the Shaggs album in there, and you can go and listen either before, during, or after the show, whatever. I will say it is almost required listening. Now, in my opinion, you're not probably going to get through too many of them songs. So maybe listen to a bit of My Pal Foot and then come back because that's the one we seem to have latched on to. But I'll say no more. Other than that's why you won't hear any actual clips of the music in today's episode. And I will hand over to our Nathan. Nathan, away you go, mate.
Yes, hello. Yes. So we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun today. It's the strange and true story of the Shaggs, which Chris said they were formed in 1965. It is probably some required listening. So why don't you open your Spotify and listen right now, and I'll just wait. That's probably enough.
Yeah,
that's probably enough.
Yeah, just putting it out there. This isn't an unbiased episode. I think Nathan mentioned he's got a vinyl pressing of one of these albums.
Correct.
Well, this album.
Correct.
I think the only. Well, I'll let him do it. But
yeah, I
it
do.
will tell you.
I'm a collector of vinyl records. I'm a big music nerd, and most interestingly, I am a avid collector and fan of outsider art. We will go more into outsider art shortly, but what do you guys know about outsider art, first off?
Can I go first, Ian, or do you want to?
By all means.
So when I first heard this term, my mind went to like Charles Manson, and I'm not sure why. And I think I've heard the term outsider art, but I don't think I'd heard it in regards to music, or at least the connection my mind made was like those really like I think the phrase like, like avant-garde, I think, where like you have those
Yes.
really weird like art installations, or like, do you remember that lady who did a painting with like her period blood,
Yes,
and
yes.
stuff like that, or like that woman who, there was an artist who put herself in a box, and it was to show the objectification of women. She allowed herself to be diddled essentially by any member of the public walking past, like,
Hmm.
and then there was also another, and I feel like I'm picking on women here, fucking hell. There was another woman who she didn't say anything, and she just stared at people as part of the ad stuff. And then also that clip of Yoko Ono screaming. But to me, it was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, to me, outside of art, I'm not sure of the exact definitions, but I do think of the stuff that tends to get publicized as like, oh, these weird fuckers.
Yeah. It's interesting how you went to Charles Manson, because he famously actually wrote and performed music as well with the Beach Boys, strangely enough. Yeah, so look into that. That's another weird one. I don't. Maybe I'll do some research on the Manson family at some point. We'll delve into it and the many pies that he had his many fingers in at the time. Ian, do you know anything about outsider art?
This is something that's very much beyond my sphere of comprehension.
Okay.
If I was to make a guess, it would have been something really bizarre to the point of, so, you know, your art installations. I'm kind of thinking of, you ever watch Vic and Bob remake Randall and Hopkirk Deceased?
No, but Vic and Bob are probably a very, very good example of outsider art, but then becoming into the mainstream. Like, it's so bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm just saying, because the first episode does very much revolve around an artist played by David Tennant, actually, a few years before he was Doctor who would just like dress up as an android and chainsaw a canvas and receive like £10 million for it or something like that. So that's the kind of thing I guess about outsider arts, but I think that's more just the kind of physical arts, because ultimately we're talking about a band. So I'm interested to see just exactly what medium it kind of covers.
Well, funny
Yeah,
enough,
so I'll also go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, like, I've just occurred to me that we all, I think, firsthand will have a lot of experience with outsider art with some of the people we've performed stand up alongside. I think, yeah, like I don't know how much of a derailment this, a detour this is, but we've seen some. In fact, some of the people we started doing stand up with would have what was very much non-mainstream kind of sensibilities. Like the Belgian ambassador, for example.
Oh, yes.
The legend.
Yeah, like, he's a funny as fuck guy, but like you could tell, like it's, and even I dare say more mine and Nathan's styles of comedy was on the fringe of like our stand up. Like we still did stand up, like we do stand up comedy where our jokes are recognizable as jokes, but even then, me and you were, when we were performing, would be on the fringe side, or not the Edinburgh Fringe, but on the fringe of kind of what's acceptable now. 10, 15 years ago, it was much more acceptable when we were like absorbing all this comedy stuff. But that, I don't think we would class as outsider art, but some of the people we performed alongside, I think definitely would count as outsider art, just because of the sheer, like, I don't know, is outsider art described, like, is it how far outside of the norm you are? Is that what defines it?
Yeah,
Because,
kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll before I go into outside art, I want to say I do remember once you sending a message in the group saying, "Look, I just don't understand why is Nathan saying ACAB to all of the dogs from Paw Patrol." And that's as outsider as it could possibly get with that.
Yeah, I think so as a dad, I obviously looked way too much into this. And Nathan, it was a succession of messages, and you forget that you're in a group of chat with other comedians, people who write jokes and stuff. And I took it seriously for a second. I was like, Nathan, why have you said in rapid succession? He said Paw Patrol ACAB, and then he called them class traitors. And I was trying to have a serious discussion about it, and I was like, oh, it's probably the juxtaposition of the Marxist values versus the banality of the kids program, and everyone was like, right, Chris, just fucking chill out, mate. Like, it's a
No,
like, oh,
mostly
shit.
with me, it's just complete bollocks. Right. So I'll go into outsider art. So outsider art is a genre of art that encompasses works created by individuals who are untrained and untutored in the traditional arts, often with little or no contact with the conventions of the art world. Now, for you, Chris, the term was coined in 1972 by Roger Cardinal and is an English equivalent for art brut, a label created in the 1940s by French artist Jean Dubuffet. Yeah, you like a bit of language, so that was for you, that one there. He focused particularly on art created outside the boundaries of official culture. Okay, using examples such as psychiatric hospital patients, hermits, and spiritualists. Outsider art has emerged as a successful art marketing category with an annual Outsider Art Fair in New York since 1993 and at least 2 regular published journals dedicated to the subject. And that is mainly for like physical art, but it moves on to basically every other genre of art or subgenre that you can possibly think of, including comedy. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Well,
bizarre.
by that definition, then, I think that puts the majority of us so I was going to say, for those who don't know, unless you're one of the 15 people in that group chat, you won't know this. But we're part of a comedy collective. Like, we banded together like post-apocalyptic gangs have to protect ourselves from the predators of the comedy world, to stop the weak ones getting picked off and molested. But we all met doing a charity thing called Ultra Comedy. It was shite, but we all met each other during that, and we stayed performing and doing comedy and comedy adjacent stuff afterwards. And we're a collective called the Cunny Funds. But by Nathan's definition, I think that puts us all pretty much as outsiders, because we had no tutelage, really. I mean, John Scott, great comedian, lovely Scottish fella, he's fucking fantastic. He gave us like some lessons on it, but it's only really been in the year since that we've started to understand how the industry works. None of us really had much of an exposure to it, and we had no like formal tutelage of here's how you apply for shows, here's how this works, here's how you avoid these people because they'll put fingers inside you. And like, yeah, so I think by your definition that does put, in fact, it puts pretty much everybody in our quote unquote collective as outsider art. But furthermore, I mean, I don't want to get too far onto this. That makes it sound very much like pretty much any working class artist is by definition an outsider artist if you're not brought up in the space.
So you're already relating to the sisters. I may be already turning you to enjoy their work. This is my plan for the end of today. You're going to be going, you know what? These guys, I appreciate the hustle. Good job, the Shaggs.
Yeah, maybe.
Right. Okay, so we'll start. So today, what we're doing is we're diving into one of the most unusual, haunting, and debated stories in American music history, which is the rise, fall, and unexpected rebirth of the Shaggs, which is a band formed not out of passion, not out of rebellion, but out of a father's prophecy and a family's complicated past. I'm so glad you just haven't done your research, because the reason this band was formed is fucking weird. It's so bizarre.
Before we go any further,
yeah.
Initially, doesn't this sound like that you could just start talking about the Jackson 5 and we'd have no clue?
Another interesting connection. Just you wait.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, the Shaggs were an American rock band formed in Fremont, New Hampshire, or Fremont. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong again. I learn words through reading, so I mostly say them wrong. And that was in 1965. They comprised the sisters Dorothy Dot Wiggins, who was on vocals and lead guitar, Betty Wiggin, the vocals and rhythm guitar, Helen Wiggin on the drums, and later Rachel Wiggin on the bass guitar. The Shaggs wrote seemingly simple and bizarre songs using untuned guitars, erratic rhythms, wandering melodies, and rudimentary lyrics. Their only album, Philosophy of the World, has been described as both among the worst of all time and a work of unintentional brilliance. Now, you guys listen to snippets. Give me your description of it in one sentence of what you listened to. Ian first.
I listened to the whole album and I thought it was one fucking song.
Great. Yeah. Wonderful.
I've listened to 2 songs. So it was My Pole Foot and be title track Philosophy of the World.
Oh, absolute banner. Absolute banner. Right, we're going to get started. I'm going to open this can of beer. And we're going to get into it. I'm drinking Le, which is a Polish premium lager. Don't know if you've ever had it. It's delightful.
Almost certainly at one point.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It just sounds like that. Like, can I have a pint? Oh, we've only got let. Oh, all right then. But whatever.
It's okay when you're in Poland and it's only like 90p for a pint of it.
Yeah.
That's when it's great. Yeah.
I lived in Poland for a few months, and at one point it was cheaper to buy a bottle of vodka than a bottle of water, which makes a decision for you. To be fair, like, yeah, okay, all right, I'll see the game you're playing.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to start off with how the Shaggs formed. So it doesn't begin with music, but as I said, with a prophecy. Okay. Austin Wiggin Jr., he is the dad of the Shaggs, and when he was a boy, his mother read his palm, and she predicted three things: that he would marry a strawberry blonde woman, he would have 2 sons after she died, and then he would have 4 daughters that would form a famous band. So eventually, he married a strawberry blonde woman, he had 2 sons after his mother died, and then went on to have 4 daughters. Fucking weird, right? Very strange. So basically, when his daughters were teenagers, he became completely determined to force that other prophecy into reality. Austin was extremely strict. He was described as a humorless mill worker in rural New Hampshire. The family was poor, isolated, and tightly controlled. The girls were not allowed to attend concerts, have friends, or date. One sister later said that they missed everything and fantasized about escaping their father's grip. Very similar to how the Jackson 5 lived their life, basically. Yeah. Mr. Michael Jackson, older Jacko, he was not a very nice man. And he kept all them working, famously, working and working and working. Poor Michael never had a childhood. He would sit at the window watching kids play outside, much like he used to do in his later life, and he would just wish that he could be out there.
I will suffer no Michael Jackson slander on this podcast. As the older I get, the more I think that was just a damaged bloke trying to recreate his childhood. I don't think sex was anything but icky with that poor bastard. So
I do concur. Yeah.
I can't wait with we'll hear no slander. Say what you will about Netanyahu, but leave Michael out of this.
So in 1965, Austin, the father, he pulled the girls out of school, so they weren't going to school anymore. He bought them cheap instruments and scheduled their lives all around hours of daily practice. None of them wanted to be musicians. They didn't even enjoy listening to music. They hated it, but they obeyed him because they didn't want to disrespect their grandmother's memory and legacy that their dad was completely fucking obsessed with, right? Dot later summed up their dynamic in one unforgettable line. He directed, we obeyed, or we did our best, basically. He named them the Shaggs after the shag hairstyle, which was popular at the time, and in reference to the 1959 film The Shaggy Dog. So there you go, there's a fact for you. The sisters hated it so much they sometimes snuck away to the lake when their father was gone and rearranged their instruments to make it look like they'd been practicing. Their childhood was a strange mix of fear, obedience, and the surreal pressure of fulfilling a prophecy that they never actually believed in at all. Right?
So, quick question.
Yeah.
I'm Googling shag hairstyles now. Is this the same hairstyle that Frodo has in Lord of the Rings? Because it looks
Let me
similar.
Google it too for you. Let's have a look. Shag hairstyle.
Because I've put shag hairstyle Frodo, and it's a load of women who look like Elijah Wood.
Yeah, I mean, the males have more of a Frodo, whereas the women... Oh, fucking hell, he looks a bit like Frank Zappa, one of them. More into him later.
Speaking about outsider art.
He gets involved, mate. He gets involved.
I'll bet he does.
Yeah, don't you worry about it.
I've heard of Trap Mask Replica.
Yeah, he's involved with these fuckers. It's his fault, really. Right, so, by 1968, Austin was ready to show the world his daughter's talent. The Shaggs made their first public performance at a talent show in Exeter in 1968. Now, I don't think it's Exeter in the UK. I don't think they were hitting any world tours. It is quite unlikely. There must have been an Exeter around...
Do you say they were based in New Hampshire?
Correct, yeah. So I'm guessing there's a lot of...
It'd It would be the northeast New England part of the US.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
Which
sense,
has
doesn't
a
it? They were all
lot
named.
of. They reuse a lot of British/European names up there.
Yeah.
Which is it? No, New Hampshire. Is New Hampshire in New England or is that somewhere else?
Yeah, so New England is a kind of region. New Hampshire is a specific state.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've just looked on Google Maps. Right. So you've got Exeter in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and then north of that is Durham, and then
Yeah.
north of that is Dover, and north of that is Rochester. Right. Okay. Oh, and there's Alton. I wonder if there's towers there. Okay. So.
Oh, I wonder.
Oh, and there's
Alton Towers mentioned.
you can see. You see up the Ra because the Americans have called. Oh, they've got Derry and Londonderry on the opposite sides of the highway.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
They separated it.
So, just before you get back into it, Nathan, so it's 1968.
Yes.
Do you appreciate that they're all going to be slightly different in age, unless any of the band members were actually twins or triplets? But what's the general age of the band when they're first being put forward for their debut appearance? Are we talking teenagers?
Yeah, teenagers. So, let me have a quick look. For some reason, I hadn't looked at their ages. Doesn't say. So,
Okay.
no, but they were teenagers. So, I believe
Sure.
Dot Wiggins is the oldest one. She's the oldest sister, and then they kind of go down in stages of like a year. They all look very, very similar to each other. If you've ever seen the picture of them, they're all from the same cut of meat. If that's an actual term.
They're all from the same gene pool.
Well, yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's healthy. It's what we call healthy stock. If anyone needs a visual aid, they look essentially like they wouldn't look out of place in the first two Conjuring films. Like could be the kids in the first two, either the first or the second one. That's like the time period, and that's what these kids looked like. They would not look out of place if Ed and Lorraine Warren walked into their house and were like,
Yeah.
It's haunted. Like, that's what they look like. It's that time period.
Yeah. Now, bear in mind as well, I believe the oldest one was actually going into adulthood at the time. Like, I think she was 18. She was at the height, but because of how controlling the father was, they knew nothing. They were still very, very dependent on him. We don't know anything about the mother, which is bizarre. Really strange. Couldn't find a lot of information, and I've never known a lot of information, but that is strange. I think maybe he killed her, but that's guess and slander. Right, so they performed in a talent show in Exeter, which was met with a complete mockery. People started throwing shit at them and stuff. Following a performance at a nursing home, after that, Austin arranged for the Shaggs to play at the Fremont Town Hall every weekend, joined sometimes by her brothers Austin III and Robert on percussion and drums. The shows attracted up to 100 adolescents who would heckle and throw junk at them. Rumours spread about the girl's controlling father, and Dot said Rachel, who attended high school, was very bullied over everything. She was like severely bullied. The sisters felt they were poor musicians and found the performances completely embarrassing. Footage of one concert emerged in 2015, with the Shaggs playing from handwritten charts and performing rudimentary choreography. Their music was unlike anything the audience had ever heard. Offbeat, out of tune, rhythmically chaotic, and yet strangely compelling. The Shaggs didn't even know that they sounded unusual. You ever heard the term tone deaf?
Yes.
Like, you must have been, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that, what was it, 3 years from when they formed to when they first performed? Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
1965, then 3 years later in Fremont, they perform 3 fucking years without. I know they weren't allowed to go and see music, but I'm sure they could hear what they were putting out.
No, they were completely tone deaf. They had no idea. All they had was their dad saying, "This is great. They're going to be this. The prophecy's becoming true." He was obsessed with it, and to be honest, I would be if all that stuff came true as well. If I had 6 kids, which my mother said that I would have 6 kids, 2 boys and 4 girls, it's a coincidence.
To be fair,
yeah,
a drunk woman once read my palm when I was in Tenerife in 2011, and she said I would either make a lot of money in engineering with computers or with video games, and that has stuck in my mind all the way through my career and up into cybersecurity, where like I do like fairly senior like things now, and I'm like, yeah, how much of that has shaped my life? Because like, I was always interested in computers, but did she just see a fat bloke and was like, he either plays games or likes computers?
Yeah, she saw the calluses on your fingers. That's what it was.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying. I think that a prophecy might have more of an impact on my life than I think I'd like to admit.
hmm So, in 1969 now, we're going one more year ahead. That's when Austin took them to Fleetwood Studios to record their debut album, Philosophy of the World. Wow, what an album. Love it. I've got it downstairs. When I put it on, my wife said, "What is wrong? Is it broken?" She genuinely thought the record player there was something wrong with it. But no, that's the Shaggs. The sisters, all of them, were absolutely terrified at the thought of this, felt completely unprepared. So they were a little bit aware of what the hell was going on. One engineer said that they looked miserable, and after hearing them play, this is hearsay, but apparently the studio staff reportedly shut the control room doors and couldn't stop rolling on the floor laughing. They literally could not continue because they were all off their chairs laughing on the floor at whatever the hell was going on in the studio. Guess how long it took for the album to be recorded?
A day.
Correct. A single day.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how many tracks, but that seems superfluous.
One track, Ian. It's just one.
It's not. It's...
Every 3 minutes, they just cut it off.
I believe there's 11 tracks. 11 tracks, and one day it was all recorded in. There were some session musicians were hired to fix the tracks after the people had listened to them, but even trained professionals could not follow the Shaggs' unpredictable tempos. Because they're musically trained and they're trained in music theory, they're trained in following a beat and a flow, they just couldn't. They could not follow whatever the hell was going on with these people who have no idea what they're doing. So is that them? Is that them creating their own subgenre accidentally?
Yes. See that like the first thing I want to say is I will clown, but these kids, it might be a pretty strong word, but were victims to their dad's fucking madness, right? Whatever mad shit he was on. Just because, just because America's like a very Christian, says it's a predominantly Christian country or whatever, doesn't make these kids like it sounded like they had a shit time. Like in the same way Michael Jackson had a shit time and Jermaine and the others had a shit time, right? So I'll clown on it, but I do feel bad for these kids. That being said, though, that is fucking fascinating. That I love that idea of you learn these boundaries and like you learn within these systems so that when I was at university, I did my dissertation on sexual habits and social class, sexual attitudes and social class. And what I found, which is replicated across pretty much all of human behavior, is that you are allowed, as humans, as pack animals, right, and the way we think and the way we work and live, you are allowed to have varying opinions within a fairly narrow band. Like, you are allowed to be as different as you want, and you might call it, like, subversive or whatever, or, like, you're allowed to have very different opinions within a certain framework. And if you fall outside of that, you quickly drop off in being able to be understood or empathized with. And like, sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's related to what we call, like, the social contract. Like, you break the social contract. So the idea that when people come along and do things like this, to us who are conditioned within these like certain laws of music or whatever, it might sound weird and jarring, but in an alternate reality where we use, instead of like a base 10 numbering system, for example, or A B C D E F G note progression, what if we used something else and then it turns out that this isn't actually discordant, it's just it requires a bit of a shift for us to be able to understand. Have we got any accounts of people who listen to this while on DMT? Or like psychedelic, because I feel like that might be the way that, like, that might, you know, like when you slide the last puzzle piece into place and you're like, oh,
maybe
I need it to be in the fifth dimension to understand this music.
That might be my next planned trip. Actually, that's not a bad idea. I've done a lot of LSD in my time.
Yeah,
My
didn't you
latest
go to like
adventure
the?
was to War of the Worlds. I went to an abandoned
Oh,
church. Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna
Jesus.
say like I'm pretty much like you posted on the Friday like you put in the group chat you're like I'll be back on Monday taking LSD and then you posted a picture of this building. I was just sat there and I was like, do you know that GIF of that bloke in the woods who like it zooms in on his face and then he just does a bit of a nod? I was just that was just me. I was like, I don't think I'd want to do that, but
It was
that's
intense. It was intense.
but that being said, yesterday I saw one of those immersive art exhibits with dinosaurs, and I
Yeah.
thought that would be the perfect place to do that. But yeah, like so going back to the girls, like that's really interesting that trained and established musicians couldn't make heads or tails of it, essentially,
Yeah,
because it was so
they couldn't
different.
unlearn. They couldn't unlearn what it
Yeah.
is that they've learned, the preconceptions of music theory and everything as session musicians that they've been taught to do. They could not go backwards. It
So
is bizarre.
I want to bring in something. I promise this is related, right? So I'm a massive fan of Stephen King, and my favorite novel of all time is It. Right? Are you both familiar with that?
Yep.
So
Yes, yes.
yeah. So It in the book, if you've only watched the film, you know, you think it's just a giant clown or whatever. In the books, it's actually an eldritch being that exists outside of our universe in something called the macroverse, which is outside of our reality, and it's like multiverse, blah 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 blah. But one passage in the book that sticks out to me, and it comes to me in times like this, is they're discussing whether it is actually evil or not. And what one of the characters instead says, and I think this applies here, is it is part of a natural order we neither understand or condone. So it doesn't say it's good or bad, it's right or wrong. It's just saying it's from such a different level of operating that we don't understand it and we don't condone it because of the way we live. But it's not to say it's good or evil or bad or whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. Are the Shaggs extra dimensional eldritch beings? Possibly.
They are, yeah, you've spoilt the ending. No, no, they're not. And there's no underage orgies in this either.
Oh, that's good for the music
Unlike-
industry. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
but
unlike
yeah.
it.
Yes.
Stephen King was. It's like
Oh,
cocaine's a
Jackson
hell of a drug.
5.
Yeah.
Good lord. Yeah. So sorry, I know I took us on a little bit of a detour with that, but that is fucking fascinating. Establishment musicians. We're just
Bizarre.
like,
Yeah.
Sure, because one of the analogies I was going to draw is, you've got jazz music, for example, and
Yes.
therefore, like, session musicians would be able to bring back, like, some of the most out there kind of planning to some kind of beat which allows for the freestyle. But this, I mean, from the little that I have listened to the Shaggs, is you couldn't really just pass this off as jazz, could you?
No, not necessarily, but it does say there are a lot of similarities when it comes to the flow of it.
Sure.
Like, for example, there are parts that you'll listen to it and you think, oh, hang on, I think it sounds like Dot's got something on a guitar here.
yeah.
And then she just decides to do something completely different, just to, like,
Yeah,
just randomly at the, like, beat 5 of a count of 8, she just changes it as if for no fucking reason. It's weird.
That's weird you said that because that has happened quite a few times with me where I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get, oh, never mind. And it happens like time and time again, like where it does sound like it's going to be like, oh, right, it's what, oh no, it's gone, it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
And
maybe,
I would coin it as a kind of anti-jazz, because jazz goes the opposite way, whereas you're thinking, where is this going? What's going on? And then suddenly something happens that brings everything together.
Sure.
Whereas this is the opposite, where you're thinking, this is coming together. Why the fuck has it gone over there now? What's happening? You know?
well, what
Right,
if it's like
I digress.
it's like that Eldritch? It's like you won't. Dot just comes over your speaker and says, "You won't understand this now, but when you're 74 and you're crossing the street next to an Argos in concert, you'll think of this melody and it will finally resolve."
Yeah,
talking to you.
maybe. Maybe it's like Back to the Future. We're saying, you won't like this, your kids won't like it either, and neither will your grandkids. But at some point, that some alien beings may say, wow, this is a fucking banger, this. You never know.
Yeah, some fucking broccoli head alien.
Yeah. So, apparently only 100 copies of the album actually surfaced. 1,000 were made, but 900 disappeared. Not sure where they went. Dot said that someone had stolen her father's money and could not be traced. So this was the guy who created the albums, who actually pressed them. According to the music executive Harry Palmer, Austin had apparently refused to distribute the extra copies because he feared someone would copy the Shaggs' music. So 900 completely disappeared because he thought, this is great, they're going to steal it. He's completely fucking deluded. It's so weird.
I mean, that guy was ahead of his time. If he'd have got like Bitcoin and then silver, if he'd have just... he's got diamond hands. Diamond hands
he has.
with vinyl music.
Yeah, they were holding on to them, or they were destroyed. We don't know what happened to them. No one knows yet.
Are you familiar with are you familiar with the all those copies of E.T. the extraterrestrial, the Atari game?
Yes, they're in landfill.
That
yes,
were buried in the landfill out in the desert, and they were a rumor for the longest time, and it turns out that was right. So maybe there's like a lost media part of the desert where everyone's just like dumping it out there.
If you find 900 copies of Philosophy of the World, that is good money. That is good money at the moment. For an original first pressing of Philosophy of the World, they're going for up to $10,000 each.
Jesus.
No way. Is it confirmed sales? Have you seen it? Like, have you seen
Confirmed sales.
Wow.
Confirmed sales, correct. Because there's only 100 of them.
And so what have you got then?
I've got a repressing.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah, mine was like 25 quid.
Yeah, I mean,
Well
I was
spent.
already planning to rob you for your Pokemon cards, but I would have grabbed the album while I was there as well.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't spend £10,000 on the Shaggs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, right. So they were gone. The Philosophy of the World received absolutely zero media coverage, and the Shaggs resumed to performing locally, and then eventually disbanded. Okay, so we're gonna have a little quick quiz break now, because that should be the end of the Shaggs. That was how their story started and finished in the late 60s and the 70s. So a little quiz. I'm going to read you some lyrics out, and I want you guys to guess whether it's the Shaggs lyrics or not. So this should be fun, yeah?
Okay.
I will mark each of your answers, and we'll go there. It's 10 questions. We'll go through them quickly, yeah? Because as we know, it's not only musical instruments that the Shaggs were inept at. They couldn't write to save their lives either. The songs are fucking weird nonsense most of the time. So let's dig in. Number 1, Michelle, Mabel. These are words that go together well.
Not the Shaggs.
You think that's not the Shaggs, Ian?
I'm almost certain of it, Nathan.
Okay.
I think that's someone from a council estate in South Shields trying to do poetry for his war lass. I don't think that's the Shaggs.
You don't think that's the Shaggs either. Okay, great. Number 2, we do our best, we try to please, but we're like the rest, whenever at ease.
Shaggs.
You think it is, Ian, yeah?
I'll go with that, yeah.
I think that sounds too hip-hoppy for them. I'm going to say no.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, some kids think their parents are cruel just because they want them to obey certain rules. They start to lean from the ones who really care, turning from the ones who will always be there.
I think their dad wrote that for them.
Yeah. Could be.
I'll go with that logic. I'll say that's Shaggs as well.
No, that's a good shout, yeah, actually. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah,
Who knows?
It just makes me think of like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where Frank's like, we need to write a song that I don't diddle kids. I never diddle. It's like, and they're like, the quickest way to get people to think you diddle kids is to write a song about it. So the quickest way to make me think you're a shitty parent is to have your kids sing a song about you not being a shitty parent.
Yes,
or
yeah.
how all of Jennifer Lopez's songs about how down to earth and normal she is.
That is egregious. She is so not Jenny from the block anymore. Have you seen that?
Have you seen that video? The one where she's going, I used to live here, and he's like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah, it's just, I think that's the same video where it's like, Orange drink, if you know, you know, from the bodega, and it's just like, oh, that is,
She's a lizard.
oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Number
Jay
4.
Liz.
J-Liz. Number 4. I used to get mad at my school. The teachers who taught me were not cool.
That's that's
Shaggs.
Dot's writing all over that.
Okay, cool. Number 5.
Don't carry the
Bomb,
rhyme
bomb,
on,
bomb,
Nathan.
bomb, bumper bomb. Sail the ship, bumper bomb. Chop the tree, bumper bomb. Skip the rope, bumper bomb. Look at me.
Shaggs.
You think that's the Shaggs? Cool. Chris?
I think that's Shaggs. Yeah, I do.
Okay. I wonder why our minds drift astray. I wonder why our life goes on this way. I wonder why we have to part. We both know it'll break our heart.
Nah, that's he's pop. That sounds. That's like
Yeah, I'm
steps
gonna
or
say
something.
not Shaggs on that one.
Yeah. Number 7. And when I awoke, I was alone. That bird has flown, so I lit a fire. Isn't it good Norwegian wood?
Shaggs.
That's not the Shag.
I feel like Ian understands a reference there that
I think
don't,
Ian
but
sees where I'm going with some of these.
I think it is the Shaggs.
Number 8. Have you seen the little piggies crawling in the dirt? And for all the little piggies, life is getting worse, always having dirt to play around in.
I'm gonna say Shaggs for that one.
Yeah?
If not the
Chris?
Shaggs and the Wiggles.
I don't know. It seems so weird. Like I can't remember hearing anything about piggies during the album, so I'm gonna say no.
Okay. Number
But
9.
then again, I thought it was just one song, so who am I to say
Yeah, you did. Number 9. There are times when I feel sad. There are times when I feel blue. What makes me feel this way the most is when I don't know why I do the things I do.
Shaggs.
I'm gonna say not Shaggs.
You're going to say not Shaggs?
I
No,
think
right.
Shaggs.
Chris has had the advantage of listening to the entire thing.
I heard
Yeah, I don't
it.
think he really listened.
I was going to say, yeah, there is a difference between hearing it and listening to it.
There is.
I heard it.
Yeah. Okay. And so, the last one, number 10. Oh, there are witches, goblins, vampires, devils, Frankensteins, and zombies. There are tramps, Cinderellas, pirates, angels, and gypsies.
Is this a? Did you get hold of the list I gave my wife for role play in the bedroom?
Yeah, that's not the Shaggs lyric. That is just your Tinder bio.
That's things to pull out when the relationship's getting rocky.
Yeah. So,
I
what do you
would-
think, Chris?
I'm going to say Shaggs because.
You're going to say Shaggs
Yeah,
for that
I'm
one?
going to say Shaggs. Yeah, I'm not.
I'm
interested
gonna
about it.
say not Shaggs because I don't think
You're going to
zombies
say
were-
no.
I don't think zombies were a popular concept till the 70s.
Oh
Okay.
shit! Good one, Ian.
I can confirm that Ian got the most points. Okay. Now, I'm not
Like
going to say
two?
how many. You only got a couple more. You got 4 points. So 4 are correct. Okay? We'll go through them quickly. Michelle, Mabel, these words go together well. That is, Ian, do you know?
The Beatles.
That's the Beatles, correct. Number 2. We do our best, we try to please, but we're like the rest, whatever it is. That's the Shaggs, quite poignant. Number 3. Some kids think their parents are cruel just because they want them to obey certain rules. They start to lean from the ones who really care, turning from the ones who will always be there. That is the Shaggs. I do think the dad wrote that one. Yes. I concur. I used to get mad at my school. The teachers who taught me were not cool. That is the Beatles.
Wow.
Number 5. Bomb, 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 bumper bomb. Sail the ship, bumper bomb. Chop the tree, bumper bomb. Skip the rope, bumper bomb. Look at me. That's the Beatles.
Fucking hell.
Early Beatles, I have to assume.
Oh my god.
I believe that one is Yellow Submarine.
Oh, okay.
Bigger than Jesus. Bigger than Jesus. Are we talking about the same Beatles?
Yeah. Number 6. I wonder why our minds drift astray. I wonder why life goes on this way. I wonder why we have to part. We both know it'll break our heart. That's the Shaggs.
Okay.
Fucking hell.
Mhm.
way.
When I awoke, I was alone. That bird has flown, so I lit a fire. Isn't it good Norwegian wood? That's the Beatles.
That's the Beatles, yeah.
Have you seen the little piggies crawling in the dirt? And for all the little piggies, life is getting worse. Always having dirt to play around in. That is also the Beatles. There are times when I feel sad. There are times when I feel blue. What makes me feel this way the most is when I don't know why I do the things I do. That is the Shaggs. And number 10, there are witches, goblins, vampires, devils, Frankensteins, and zombies. There are tramps, Cinderellas, pirates, angels, and gypsies. That was the Shaggs singing that one.
There we go.
I can't believe this. I'm starting to think that the way that we've been conditioned to enjoy music has gaslit me into thinking that the Shaggs are bad. Because when you take their lyrics and put them next to some of the Beatles, like, I'd say in that list generally, the Shaggs came out better with their lyrics.
I did cherry pick. Let's just say. I did.
I would say that both Norwegian Wood and Michelle are very good songs.
Yeah, they are.
But again, the lyrics in starkest lyricless retelling as they were, perhaps not going to come across as good as they do on vinyl.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But I believe it goes to show that on paper, when it comes to writing lyrics, their outsider art is not as outsider as we may seem. It's more into the mainstream when it comes to actually writing the lyrics of songs.
Yeah.
Some of them, as you say, you listen to one and you thought, that is a very love romance song. But that was 20 years later that started coming up. So are they pioneers? Who knows?
I mean, that's... But then again, I suppose music is art, and generally art's about the execution, isn't it? Like, it's it's the execution of a good idea. Is art defined by its execution? I don't know, because if it's just in the method and the idea of it, that's more of a science. Like, music is an art rather than a science.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rambling, but it's just... Sorry, it's really, like, blown my mind a bit that I've been like, these are shit, what the fuck, and then I can't pick them out of a lineup next to the Beatles, some of like the greatest musicians ever. I mean, like, I was listening to Let It Be today, like like I was just walking around the house singing Let It Be. So why am I not
crazy.
walking around the house singing My Pal Foot?
Well, you will be after this. So we'll jump back into the Shaggs now. We're in the early 1970s now. So in the early 1970s, the sisters are now adults. Okay, so we're looking at the timeline. We're thinking late teenagers, definitely, throughout everything that was going on.
So
exhausted.
Question.
Yeah.
Sorry, quick question. So now they're adults. Did they change their name from the Shaggs to the Shaggers?
So, well, I don't think so, because their dad was still around. I don't think their dad had... he didn't really like them having boyfriends or husbands or anything like that, which we'll get into in a couple of sentences' time. This is another weird part of the story. So the sisters were adults, exhausted, and increasingly desperate for their freedom. They were still under their father's tight control when Helen secretly married at age 28. Austin, the dad, chased her husband out the house with a shotgun, and then the police intervened, and that's when Helen left home to live with her husband, and then basically quit the band, and the band collapsed. That was early 1970s, so I would say 1970 to potentially 1971 that was going on. So she left the band, but she did return 1975 to the band. Not sure what happened with her husband. I think they all just kind of shook hands and said, that's great. Because Austin took the Shaggs to Fleetwood Studios for another recording session. Though they had become much more proficient through hundreds of hours of practice, the engineer wrote of their poor performances and he felt very sorry for them. He said that they did not notice their out-of-tune guitars or disjointed rhythms when he was playing the recordings back to them. They literally just thought that that's how it was supposed to sound. They were all completely tone deaf. Shortly afterwards, Austin, the dad, died suddenly in his sleep at age 47. And as soon as that happened, the sisters disbanded immediately. Sold their equipment, they left home, tried to build normal lives. They never earned any money from the music. Their childhood home was later burned down in a firefighting exercise after the new owner became convinced it was haunted by Austin's ghost.
Wow.
This story's bizarre, isn't it?
What the fuck? I'm just imagining, like, we need to sell these instruments, and fucking 2 days later, like, oh, nobody's buying them. They say they're all fucked. They've served us fine for years. We've been using them for years. I don't see what the problem is.
Yeah, I know. What do you mean that they're out of tune? We've been fine.
Hey, look, I've never seen a guitar with 6 strings. You're full of shit. Mine has 4, and it's fine.
One of them is made out of wool. So, the Shaggs story could have ended there completely, a strange footnote in local history, but fate had other plans. Because in the 1980s, some of the remaining 100 copies of Philosophy of the World began circulating among musicians and collectors. What had once been mocked was now being reinterpreted as something raw, pure, and unintentionally avant-garde. Here comes the boy Frank Zappa, famous and unusual musician known for songs such as Uncle Remus and Willie the Pimp. Grammy Award winner Bonnie Raitt and members of the NRBQ, which was the New Rhythm and Blues Quartet, became fans. Zappa was even quoted as saying the Shaggs were better than the Beatles. He loved them. Critics were divided. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Was that a lot of subtlety is lost? Like, if you take things like without knowing you, for example, if you read some of the things you write down in text without hearing your voice, you wouldn't understand that it was being like. Was he being tongue in cheek, perhaps, or was he serious? Do we know?
I think he was probably being. He was trying to get a rise out of like a Rolling Stone. Yeah, he was being a dickhead, basically. But he's also a strange guy and is no stranger to outside art and the unconventional. So I do think he did see some beauty in what was being made as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as I say, critics were divided. Some called the album worst ever recorded, while others hailed it as a landmark of outsider art, which we went into. And obviously, outsider art coined in 1972, but this started before 1972. So when they started, they didn't have a home. Now that the word has been coined, they have a home. They have a slot. They have a pigeonhole to go into. Lester Bangs, who wrote for the Rolling Stone at the time, wrote that the Shaggs can't play a lick, but he insisted that they had the perfect rock and roll attitude. Their music was being embraced by the exact opposite audience Austin had imagined. Long-haired avant-garde intellectuals. The NRBQ helped reissue the album in 1980, that's the one I've got, and suddenly the Shaggs were a cult phenomenon. Their accidental originality had become their legacy. Very strange. It just suddenly, like, after 100 albums were circulating somewhere that no one had ever heard, no media references, they just appeared like like an old wives' tale. This eerie, strange album. There's got to be something about it in order for it to capture the imaginations of so many people, I would say.
I mean, especially
or they're just all taking the piss.
It didn't have a release like back in the 60s, did it?
No, they were just floating around. 100 of them were floating around somewhere, 900 of them fucking disappeared.
So we're not talking about like radio airplay or anything like that at the time it was released.
Nope, they were just playing at their local town hall, much to people would just literally turn up to shout abuse and throw things at them. That was their history. It's so strange how it appeared and started gaining attention. So by the 90s, outsider music was getting a lot more attention, and the Shaggs were at the centre of the conversation. Kurt Cobain listed them among his favourite bands, and the New Yorker published a profile. Tribute albums came about, and even a stage musical eventually was made.
What? A stage musical?
A stage musical about the life and times of the Shaggs. I believe it was in 2050.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's called just The Philosophy of the World.
Yeah, 2018, the Hollywood Reporter reported Elsie Fisher had been cast in a film musical based on the Shaggs, directed by Ken Kwapis. At the 2025 Edinburgh Festival Fringe, the theatre company In Bed With My Brother performed Philosophy of the World, a play based on the Shaggs. It attacks the patriarchy and celebrates the Shaggs as an inspirational failure to conform, whether by accident or design. Very strange.
There's an original off-Broadway cast recording on Spotify. I've just stuck a clip on for myself there.
No,
Oh, it's
I
all in
haven't
tune
listened to
though.
that.
It's all in
Oh, well,
tune.
then it's wrong. Then it's wrong. Get it
Yeah,
in the
the
bin.
lyrics all rhyme.
Yeah, get it in the bin. That's not okay.
Oh, that's unfortunate because just on that couple of clips I've heard there, that's kind of undone. Like you've missed the point, right? You've just
Yeah.
sanitized their outsider art for off-Broadway like musical.
I concur. I concur. The sisters themselves were ambivalent. Dot worked as a cleaner, Betty was a janitor and warehouse employee, and Helen struggled with severe depression. They didn't quite understand why anyone liked the music. They still thought it was horrible, and obviously it probably brought back a fucking hell of a lot of horrible, horrible memories. But in 1999, Dot and Betty performed at NRBQ's anniversary show in New York. Fans travelled from around the world, and Dot later said it was the first time she realised how large their following had become. In the 2010s, Dot recorded new material with the Dot Wigan Band, and she and Betty performed occasional reunion shows, but they remained uneasy about revisiting the past, and Betty openly admitted she only performed for the money. She wasn't an artist. She didn't want to create anything. She was just there. And I think she was a grifter, I would say. She saw the grift in why the fuck are all these people following me with this nonsense that I've made? I might as well milk it as much as I can, which fair dues.
I mean, is it fair to call it a grift when she suffered for that? Like, regardless, she put the time in. Like, that is her music, and is it a grift to think, all right, I'm going to profit off work I've already done? Like, imagine, I think people who would redistributing the music and making money off it would be the grift rather than her.
Yeah, it'd be fair. I think that's a fair statement to make. It's not her fault that it's all come back. She's not the one pushing it. But yeah, she's just doing it for the money, which is fine, fair enough. I don't think she should be necessarily passionate about whatever the hell's going on in her side of the music industry. But it is weird how it all came about again. The Shaggs occupy a unique place in music history now. They are simultaneously considered one of the worst bands ever and one of the most important. I believe their music forces listeners to question what good and bad even mean. So that is similar to what you were talking about there, Chris, about it and the being like good and bad. Like, we've been told what good and bad is supposed to be. So are the Shaggs bad? Yes, categorically.
That saves me a question.
Yes, they are. But are there good sides of it? I also think yes, definitely. I think their work this is my personal opinion now, I think it's authentic, inscrutable, and I think it's unintentional brilliance. I think it's so out there and so weird that I haven't thought about an album so much after I listened to it from the first time I heard this one. When I listened to it all the way through, I was literally in my garden with a cup of tea, looking at the sky, thinking, what the fuck? And I believe that that's what certain art should make you feel.
Yeah.
I think, as you said before, Ian, something about, I think you mentioned jazz before, the rhythms resemble free jazz, which I like to listen to a lot of free jazz because I believe it trains your brain into thinking outside the box a little bit. And I think their lyrics are like eerie nursery rhymes. The melodies are all chaotic, but for some reason they are strangely catchy in a way.
Yeah, sorry, I mentioned The Conjuring earlier. Like, one thought I did have about this album is it seemed like the type of music that is used to punctuate a jump scare. Like, do you know when like in the Conjuring films where like suddenly the gramophone will turn on or the radio will turn on and it's playing like some weird music? Like, it's that kind of discordant melodies that there's that very famous violin piece called Spiders on Strings or something where it's used in like pretty much every horror film, like spiders running away. And some of their melodies give you like the same feeling, but it's fucking fascinating. Oh my god.
I think it's because I think it's with it all being very acoustic, I think it's what makes it very eerie. It's almost like it would be played on Summer Isle during the Wicker Man's ceremony.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It spooks you out in that kind of sense. But if you take like their out of tune guitars and put them into a different band, like make them electric, you've got Sonic Youth. Like there's so much music out there now that really leans into the out of tunes, grungy, raw wall of noise that can happen if these guys plugged their instruments in instead of just playing their acoustic instruments and wailing over them. They would probably be on Jules Holland, I would say.
Do you know, you're really not wrong and 100% serious. So do you know the other day when I put in our podcast group chat, fucking white guys in their 30s and 40s were grouped, thousands of group chats. Stop me if you've heard that one before. But I put in our group chat. Do you know when I put that Instagram reel of that girl that keeps coming up? Who was like singing punk, but she can't sing it, and she's just shouting the words. And I said, oh, it makes me think of the Shaggs. Well, lo and behold, I was doom scrolling last night, saw the same girl singing The Snowman. Do you know the really, and she was fucking phenomenal. Like she sang it beautifully. But my only exposure to this girl had been with her trying to do like really, to me, badly written, or might not be bad anymore. I don't know what's considered good and bad after this. But it was really like weirdly written punk songs where she was literally just shouting and screaming into the microphone, and it wasn't like it wasn't melodic. Then I saw her shift into another video where she's singing something completely different, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was a good, passable rendition of The Snowman, and that was the same woman. So like, yeah, put these girls. I mean, what could you? I don't know. Like, what does it do? Does it speak? Like, I'm in two minds here, and just fucking stream of consciousness. Like, I'm in two minds here. Is this more of that? These girls could have been fantastic had they had the right encouragement, or is it more of a, if you apply yourself hard enough, look what anybody can do with some and if you give them some direction.
Yeah, Pitchfork wrote once about one of their reunion shows that they actually did some Carpenters covers, and their Carpenters covers were apparently well played and like all right, like about a 7 out of 10. But I don't see that as them creating or them being like an art form. Like that girl you were talking about, her cover of The Snowman, it may have been more polished, it may have been like better, but that video that you sent me of her shouting her own unusual punk poetry lyrics while looking like she had like, I don't know, definitely have some sort of a neural divergence. I thought that was good. That is the expression in its truest and rawest form, I believe. But I have a question for you guys, a haunting question. What does it mean to celebrate art that was created under pressure, trauma, and control? And if accidental art is recreated on purpose, is it still the same art? What do you think?
Wow. How do we define, coercive, claustrophobic control? It's like the Transformers movies were done under Michael Bay, and he's a villain.
He is a villain, yeah. But would you say that is art? I
enjoy those films. I'd never call that art. I don't know. It's interesting because I think, art is obviously completely subjective, and it's really, I suppose it's twofold. It's what you know about the process and then what you think about the resulting product. It's like something incredibly beautiful and valuable could have been made upon the blood, sweat and tears and deaths of many a person. Like, think about the slave labour that would have gone into building the pyramids or things like that. So, a bit of context is always very useful. If it's under the coercive control of an abusive father, sure, the art can be good. Whether or not it should detract from it then comes down to the whole separating the art from the artist kind of debate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then that's another point that I think people can't or generally don't have a single absolutist point of view. It's like sometimes you can separate the art from the artist and sometimes you just can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lost profits for me is probably.
It always comes back to lost profits.
It is that is the biggest example of it for me. Is that like a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, I can separate the art from the artist, but then there are times where you just can't. And yeah, that I don't know. Like art made under coercion, should it still be celebrated? Right? Because on one hand, obviously the cliche part of me wants to say, like diamonds are made under pressure, and Michael Jackson's entire discography and the Jackson 5, like some of the best music to ever kind of be produced. But then the sadness and the coercion that goes on in the background is, I think, ultimately, I think where I'll settle on this is my Chris's thought is where I'll settle on this is that if the quote unquote victim is empowered and is able to benefit from the fruits of their labor, willingly given or not, then I feel no qualms about being able to celebrate their art. If it was produced under abuse and coercion, and then their abuser, like a lot of the music industry, like Dr. Luke and Kesha, for example, like, and they profit off of that, I then don't think that is, I don't think I'd be comfortable celebrating it. I think ultimately it's where is the victim empowered, and is the victim able to recoup and profit from some of their art, or at least retain control of it.
I suppose
I wholly concur.
The happy thing you can probably say specific to the Shaggs is that the father never saw any of the success or relative acclaim that came out of what was his project, because obviously he had died in the interim between the album being made and then Frank Zappa like circulating it to all and sundry. So I suppose you've got that going for it. Could I ask you a question though, Nathan? With regard to, because this has been a complete blind spot for me, and I was, despite sounding like I'm not and never had been, I was a student radio DJ and the head of music at my station, and the year that I first heard about the Shaggs was 2026. When this podcast got going. So I was just wondering, how did you come across the Shaggs to begin with? Because granted, even though, they started having their kind of resurgence and aura get promoted in the early 1980s, it's still something I literally haven't come across in my 40 years of being on this planet. So
I mean, there's so many little nooks and crannies of the music world that we, as a whole, have probably not heard of yet. There's loads of times that I've the bands that are fucking massive, and I think, how the hell have I not heard of these? But a story so bizarre, how I came about it, was actually one of the guys who worked on the intro song that we have on this podcast with me, the guitarist, Dave. He was a huge Frank Zappa fan. And one time that we were playing in the band, he asked me if I knew of the Shaggs, and I said no, and he went, listen to this, you'll never forget it, you'll be up thinking about it all night. And he played it to me, and I was like, what in the fucking hell? And then basically he told me the whole story, and I got completely fascinated by it because I like weird shit, like other outsider artists that I don't know if you've heard of. Have you heard of the Frogs, Ian?
I've heard the name. I wouldn't be able to describe the music.
No, that sounds like a guy's come into his house pissed up and put on Microsoft Recorder and just started fucking going at it, talking about goats dying. Like, it's fucking weird. They outsider art. There's a guy called Mersbo. Have you heard of him? He is a DJ who everything sounds like static. Every single track is basically a different frequency of static, and he's massive as well. It's just fucking weird, man. There's so many weird parts of the world and weird things that people will listen to on purpose. There's a drummer as well. Oh, I always forget his name, But I don't know if you've seen videos of him. He has a single snare drum, and he goes around doing tours where he's just hitting the snare drum, and then occasionally he starts rubbing himself on it, and then rolling all over the floor, and then smashing the room up. And
Nice.
yeah, so it's there's a lot of strange stuff out there, Ian. Basically, I agree
Sure.
with you though, Chris. I agree that we should celebrate the Shaggs' success because their dad was a piece of shit, and I'm happy that his prophecy came true, and I'm happy that he never fucking saw it happen.
Yeah, that's
Basically,
fucking wild, man. But like talking about like Ian, like being head of music and what have you, and not hearing about the Shaggs. I think there's just so much saturation of media that it's never going to happen. Like for example, I'm a massive reader, love reading, a massive nerd. I've discovered literally within the past month an entire new genre of fiction I never knew existed, and it is quickly becoming one of my favorites. And I turn 33 next week, and I've been reading books like literally like as long as I can remember, and at this point, like put a number on it, I've probably read thousands of books, and it's predominantly fiction. And I've discovered an
yeah.
entirely new genre, and I'm like, where the fuck have you been my whole life? And it's been, well, been
It's
here,
not
dickhead. You just haven't got to me.
splatterpunk, is it?
It's no, we don't we don't talk about those horny women with porn addictions who just because it's a book doesn't make it not an addiction. No, it's called lit RPG, literature role playing games. So it's a whole genre of fiction where it's usually the world and the fantasy is based around role playing game type scenarios. And one of the series, and it turns out, now that I've looked at it, it's one of the most popular book series going at the moment. It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl. So I'm not surprised that, and it's unbelievable. Some of the best audio performances on Audible I've heard. But the point being, music and films like Ian's thing, like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, that there's stuff out there we just haven't discovered whatsoever because there's just so much that we never could possibly get into it. But that does bring me to a second point is... and this is going to sound awfully cynical of me, and this is the working class Rage Against the Machine type thinking. With people
I'll
like
just
Frank,
kick back then.
yeah, with people like Frank Zappa, it almost makes me think of that cliche kind of Hollywood type music or like Hollywood like type joke of, oh, you're into this, that's so last year, I'm into this. It's that postmodern supermarket of beliefs, that postmodern, like, and in fact, maybe Frank Zappa was just a herald of what we're living through now, where everybody's so desperate to be individuals that he went and found something that nobody else in the music industry would know about, just so he could say, oh, well, I'm actually into the Shaggs. Oh, you haven't heard of them? Well,
Yeah,
they're
I can
better
see
than the
Zappa
Beatles.
doing that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
better than the Beatles. Let me introduce you to them. And then it just kind of not got out of hand because Ian hadn't heard of them and I hadn't heard of them. But like, it's went from there, as in like these Hollywood or music industry elites that are like, yeah, right, the Beatles, yeah, they are so last year. It's actually all about the Shaggs now. Tuned instruments, you fucking sheep. Chord progression, that's for morons. Listen to this.
God. Listen to my pal Foot and then we'll talk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, or even better, to bring it back to Ian's sensibilities, because I know he's a massive fan of house and garage music. Of Kevin and Perry Go Large. Do you know where Eyeball Paul is quizzing Kevin on the music?
Yes.
Paul K, yeah.
Yeah, and he rattles it off really quickly, doesn't he? Like, is it Reese Ifans is the actor?
He is. Sacha Chicane.
Yeah, and he rattles it, Eyeball Paul, like, rattles it off really quickly. And it makes me think, like, you could easily see, like, Frank Zappa being in that situation, like some young fucking music industry hopeful. And he's like, the Shaggs or the Beatles? The Beatles. Ah! Like, they take the piss out of it. I don't know. That's just, like, a thought I had for it, because it's...
Yeah.
It just seemed to be that... So what was Zappa doing this? What was it, the 70s he was doing this? Where he was, like...
70s, yeah. 70s when he started doing that.
Yeah, the quote-unquote the resurgence. Like, could it have been that case of just that one-upsmanship within the music
sorry,
industry?
I believe it was the 80s with Zappa.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the 80s, yeah. So Zappa picked it up in the 80s.
Zappa was well known for being pretty individual and out there.
Yeah, he was. So I think
kids.
he may have been playing into that a lot more, making sure people have heard of the Shaggs, which brings me to why now you guys have heard of the Shaggs. Do you curse me for this knowledge, or do you thank me for the knowledge of this wonderful incident?
I'll let Ian go first on this.
Nathan, I thank you for the gift of knowledge, and because I chose not to listen to the entirety of the album, I will also refrain from cursing you.
Okay. That's fair. That's a fair one. So if you had heard the whole album, you would have been cursing me before you even heard about why it came to be. Gotcha.
Very likely.
Yeah, it's been a bit jarring for me to come from War of the Roses to the Wars of the Roses to this, and then I'm researching the next episode, which is like mythology in the Northeast and folktales. So it's been a very bit of a whiplash. So I am going to curse you. However, I'm cursing you for the specific album. I am not cursing you for the knowledge of outsider art in general, because this has been... And there's a few topics that we've all chosen where I think we've all give each other like funny looks, like, all right, I'll trust you, but what the fuck? Like, and this is probably the first one. I think Ian has one planned for like Iron Gorge or something. I was just like, right. No, sorry, I think it was like Casablanca, and I was like, right. Or whatever. Don't hold us to that. If the episode changes, that's, you know, we are beholden to nobody, listener, you entitled fucks. But I have had an expression on my face that you can't see because we're not on camera. This whole episode, when you started talking about the story behind all this, and I've got this smile on my face that can't go down. It won't go down, but I'm also shaking my head in disbelief, and it's not an expression I can remember pulling very often. It's just this ultimate, like, I've been exposed to this almost a world I knew was there in some way, but you've really kind of opened the door and let me have a good fucking look around for a bit. So I thank you for that knowledge, particularly of outsider art. I would very much like to see more of that in future. If I could make a humble request, you're probably the best person.
I will send you some stuff.
Well, I'd like to discuss it on the podcast if we could, because the idea of outsider art is a massive topic. You could go fucking anywhere on that, and I think people would enjoy listening to it. If they enjoyed it even a fraction as much as I have today, I think I'd love to see that in future. But so I will curse you. I will curse you for the individual album because I thought it was all one song. But I will thank you for the knowledge that. I'll thank you for the knowledge of outsider art, but then I'm going to curse you again. So 2 curses and a thanks, because I'm now really sad thinking about, God, how many times have we had a Jackson 5 situation and they just didn't make it?
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Now that fucks me up. Like,
yeah, it is sad. It's a happy ending, but it's sad. It's a sad story.
Do we know how much the women made in the end?
No. No. No, they were all very reluctant to even carry on. I think they made money through reissues. I don't think it was a massive amount. They probably were able to live comfortably, but not like as in ultra rich rock stars. But that's a guess.
No, well, you're smashing up a Premier Inn. Like, that's about the level you get to. Are they all alive still? Because it's getting on now. They'll be like,
no, one of them just died.
Oh,
yeah.
Dot's dead. Oh, yeah, Dot's dead.
I think Dot's dead.
Oh, not Dot. She was one of the good ones.
They were all good.
She wrote, right? Was she the main writer, I think?
She was, lyrics and vocals and guitar. Yeah, she was the oldest. Yeah, I think she's dead girl now.
Damn. Oh, okay. What'd she die of?
Wikipedia saying the drummers died as well.
Was that
Rip.
Helen? Was Helen the drummer?
Helen's dead. Rip in peace.
Oh.
So yeah, there you go.
Oh damn. Okay. Right. Well, fair enough. I mean, like, look, that's whenever I see people like that have died, I always think, if you're of a particular like religious slant, that when they get to the pearly gates, they'll at least have a story to tell. Which she was like, yeah, I was in a band for a bit, then I worked in a factory for a bit, and then it turns out I was really famous, and I didn't realise.
And also, you know for a fact, she's not going to see her dad again.
Yeah, sounds like a fucking loser.
Yes.
Oh yeah, fuck that guy. Him and Joe Jackson have just been like, oh, my tab is better.
Yeah, they're just down in hell arguing.
That's the one.
Yeah. That's fucked up. Like, how fucked up is it that, like, you want your kids to make music but wouldn't let them go to concerts? Like, Beethoven was deaf and he still managed to fucking go. Jesus.
Yeah.
But no, the one quote I have thought of this whole way through is, are either of you familiar with the British TV show Peep Show?
Yes. Love
Familiar
it.
with, yes.
Yeah. So there's an episode where one of the characters, Jez, is he's in a band called Man Feelings, and their USP is they are men with feelings. But they're having a jam at the beginning of the episode, and Jez can't play the instrument. And he's like, and then they all stop, and Superhands, his friend's like, Jez, what you doing? He's like, I'm jamming. I just do what I want. He goes, that's not jam, that's fucking marmalade. And this whole time, this whole episode has made me think of that, because it's like, it's a jam. I can do whatever I want. And he's like, no, that's fucking marmalade. It sounds horrible. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm inviting you not to jam anymore.
Jez is the outsider art pioneer of the early 2000s.
Well, he wants to be an outsider art,
Yeah.
but he's actually terribly mundane. Actually, well, yeah,
Just
actually,
these metal hands.
Yeah, all the music him and Superhands make is probably very much. Well, it is actually outsider art, isn't it? Because like they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and
Yeah.
they kind of the only little minimal success they have is at the Christian Rock Festival, and they kind of stumble into it.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's not a topic for here, because everybody listening to this is probably in our age bracket who knows what Peep Show is anyway.
Yes.
But no, that was sorry. From me, 2 curses and a thank you. And it's you're right. I am really thinking about this now, knowing the story behind it. It's made me want to think, like, what other albums do I love that, like, there's a fucking whack shit story behind it. Like it's like when I found out that Benny Blanco existed, and I was like, this cunt's behind every song I've ever fucking enjoyed. Like, what the hell? You know, like, do you know what Benny Blanco is? Is it Benny Blanco? Is it called Benny Blanco? Basically, so he's a music producer, and I ended up, yeah, it is him, and I ended, I'll send you a video about it. He's basically behind every popular song over like the past 20 years, and it's fucking crazy. Like, he co-wrote, like,
He's
married
with
to
Selena Gomez. Yeah.
he wrote loads, like Payphone by like Maroon 5 and stuff like that, and they sell all these Diamonds by Rihanna, like, and they write these songs, they sell them to the artists, and then they tweak it with the artist. But then he went on, like, he co-wrote most of Ed Sheeran's songs, like, on some of his albums.
Mm-hmm.
Burn him! Burn him!
Yeah, and
He's
turns out that
ruined music.
yeah, but like, it turns out this guy is just like, he's behind, like, so like when I mean, Ian might be a little bit, but like certainly when I was like, I'm in my 30s now. He was behind like every popular song over like the past 20 years within pop music, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, and it's the same with this, where it's like you hear the stories behind these songs and these albums, and you're like, wow, there is so much I don't know, and it's yeah, it's amazing. It's always amazing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I just I'm proper giddy because I'm a massive nerd, so like, whenever I'm like, oh my god, not only is this whole knowledge here, but I'm also really interested in it, and I didn't know I was interested in music. So thank you.
Well, there you go. You can delve deeper. I really need a wee though.
All right, well, in that case, then we'll call it here. So I think next episode's back to me as the host, where we're gonna talk about folk tales and mythology within the northeast of England. So it's quite a local episode. But we'll also talk about some other tales of the area, and it'll be a nice bit of an escape. So yeah, I'm going to say thank you to our host Nathan. Did you
You're
enjoy
welcome.
doing your first hosted episode?
Yeah, it was good fun. Looking forward to some of my future ones.
Me too. You have got some good. I'm looking for. In fact, that's what I love about this podcast, is that because there's you two guys here as well, and hopefully you feel the same way about some of my topics. I'm like, fuck, I can't wait for this. Like, I'm so excited to learn about this.
I love to learn.
Me too. Right, well, in that case then, fellas, I am going to say goodbye from me, Chris.
Goodbye from me, Ian.
And goodbye from me also, Ian.
Bye.
Cheerio.